Hello, Strickmich Club members. Hello, knitters. This is Martina Behm, and I welcome you to the first cast-on event of Strickmich Club 2021. And you can see that somebody really cool and famous has joined me here. Hello, Babs Orscherman from the US.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm fine. Hope you're fine too.
Yeah.
And there is a special reason why you are with me today. You were the first dyer of a club yarn for the club 2021 with your brand, Miss Babs.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yep.
we are really happy and proud to have you again. I think it's the second time that you are joining us as a dyer for the club. And last year I had an extra design with one of your yarns because we had to delay one of our shipments. And that's where we had something special with one of your yarns. So some of our club knitters will know you, but there may be, as unlikely as it may seem, there may be some knitters around who
Absolutely.
who don't know Miss Babs yarns. And before we open up the club package and we start unboxing everything, and I will talk about the design, I would first like to know a little bit more about you, about your yarns, and how it all came to be. So you have been a dyer for quite a long time, for more than 10 years. How did it all start?
Well, actually, here in my home, in the kitchen of my home. And I had a job that was ending, and I didn't have to have a job right away, but I had also started spinning wool, and the wool was mostly white, and so it needed color. And so all of these things tied together, and I just started trying all sorts of things from Kool-Aid to uh, uh, other, you know, I tried natural dyeing, I used marigolds, I did all sorts of things. Um, and I dyed in my kitchen, and I washed things out in my sink, and then I spun them out in my washer. And it just, the problem with me is that I start small and then it just snowballs, and I go big, and I went big. And all of a sudden I had more yarn than I could imagine what I could ever do with it, because I was a weaver, or I did a lot of weaving, and um, but I just needed to not have all of this yarn in the corner, which was taking over the room at that point. Um, and so that was 2005 was when it really kicked off full time for me. And so I've been dyeing for over 15 years full time. And in uh, 2007 and 2008, I started going to shows. And my husband also became ill at that point, and I needed to turn the business into something more than something that helped the house hold expenses to be covering all of the household expenses. And so it went from there. It just snowballed and kept growing. And I moved from the kitchen into a small room off the side of the house to a workshop that's across the driveway. And then we added on to the workshop, and that, all of this happened over time. And finally, I just couldn't handle it anymore, all being in the house. And so we built a building, which is about 3 miles away from here. And that's where we work. And so.
Yeah. And how did it start in the first 2 years? You said like you started in 2005 and 2 years later you went to shows. Did you have an online business right away? Did you start with that?
Yeah, actually, by 2006, I had an online business and I added a website right away. And then, you know, and that has changed over time as well, and grown for sure.
Yeah. And what was so fascinating about dyeing that you just couldn't stop?
Color. That's absolutely the color. And, you know, I still dye all the time, every day. I have people who work for me now, but, you know, doing dyeing, but I still am very much involved in dyeing and all of that. It absolutely is the fascination with the color, and it ties into the knitting, because part of, you know, especially with variegated yarns or yarns that have changes in color, is that there's something that happens as it slips through your fingers. And there's something that soothes the soul. I don't know how else to put it, but it feeds me. It makes me feel, it comforts me. It slows me down. It's meditative. So between the knitting, the repetition of the knitting, and the watching the color slide through my fingers is the combination there that really ties me to the color.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. When I designed with your new colorway for the club, it felt like that. Yeah, because you always have one color is coming, one color is going, and you always want to know what's coming next, and you want to know what it looks like when it knits up. And it's just such a transformation. You have this beautiful skein and the color combination there, but it will transform into something else when you knit with it. And to make both aspects of the yarn beautiful is really an art. So it looks nice on the skin, but it also looks fascinating when it's knit up. And that's like one of the properties of your yarns that I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the second time for you around in Strickmich Club, and we have noticed over the years that you always have been a member of Strickmich Club as well. Even if when you didn't dye for us, you were always a member. Maybe you can tell us why did you become a member, and what did you like about it?
So there's a number of reasons I choose to be a member. One is I like you and Peter. And so in part, it's a way to support you. One of the other reasons is that I want to have access to the designs, your designs, before they necessarily go live, so that I can think about potentially having samples made up, so that when we go to shows, we have samples already ready. And of course, those I would knit in my own yarn, as opposed to your yarn. It's also a way for me to see what other dyers are doing, although I don't really look at what other dyers are doing most of the time, because I find that complicates my mental space. I like to just sort of focus on what I do. I don't know if you look at what other designers do. You probably, I look a little bit, but I don't want to get overly involved in somebody else's style, because it's really important for me to be me. And, but I also love your designs, and I love the way your mind works in terms of the numbers and how you figure out the math and, and all of that. And I just find that intriguing.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that's really nice to hear. Yeah, if I were you, I also wouldn't bother looking at other dyers' yarns, because I think I said this before. To me, it's easy to spot a Miss Behm skein among other dyers. I mean, there are lots of dyers and they make wonderful yarn, but there's always something special about a Miss Behm skein. And I know we have talked about this before, but I find this so fascinating. When we talked last, I asked you, what makes your yarn so special? And you said that you pick the colors in a specific way. So maybe you could go into that another time, because I think it's really interesting.
So the way that some of this is I pick the colors sort of intuitively, it's just, and so what I've learned about intuition is that it's not just some woo-woo thing. It is actually born out of experience. And I have, over the years, I have put together so many colors that I can see, I know how colors are going to go together. But it's always important to me to balance a color out, have some sort of do a cool, and then warm, because the warm will make the cools show off. I also have a tendency to match colors, and maybe they match in my eye more than they do in other people's, but when I wear something, if things don't match, I don't like wearing them. I'm very funny about it. That includes blacks. I like a black to match a black, and it's just.
That's a very, very dyer's thing to say. I've never heard anyone say that before. So,
yeah. But the collection of colors that I, pick out of an inspiration. You sent me a photo that I used for this yarn, and I didn't pick all of the colors that were in the photo. I mean, that would be crazy, silly, and all that sort of thing. But it's about finding a balance that will create a feel of the place. And I am very much my tagline is inspired by nature, and I am surrounded by nature. I live in the country. When I drive places, one of my favorite things to do is go driving and just watch the countryside go by and look at colors while I'm doing that. And, after I came to visit you all, I did a couple of colors that were just inspired by the fact that in November, there was some crazy green. It was just amazing to me how green, and so, and my brain was just overtaken with that color. And so when I came,
that's really fascinating. I mean, Schleswig-Holstein, our state, in November is really like the green was probably the only color that was here, but that you were able to see that and to be inspired by it is really fascinating, I think. Yeah. So yeah, great. Yeah, and what you said last time was that you always make sure that there is a resting point for the eye on the skein, that you have some color that makes it look less chaotic, maybe, to harmonize everything else that's on the skein.
Yeah, and with this one, I did choose, some colors that allow it to rest, and for sure. And and so we'll get to see that in a little bit.
Yes, we will. We will. So as we can't stop talking about it, and we are almost talking about the color, I will now reveal, or in a minute reveal, what's in this bag. Maybe just a few words about what's going on. We have added these little flyers to all of the packages, and there are the 4 dates on it, the 4 days when we will hold the cast on events, when we are going to open the bags with the numbers on them. And well, one special thing is that everyone who is in the US has received this first yarn directly from you, because we thought it was a waste of energy to ship everything to Germany and then ship everything back to the US, especially in these times when shipping is difficult and very expensive. So, so everyone who's in the US, don't worry, you got one package with one club skein directly from Miss Babs, and you got a package from Strickmich with all the other skeins in it. Yeah, you got access to the digital patterns, because the digital pattern is now the default. Everyone gets a digital pattern. And if you have opted to receive the printed patterns additionally, they are going to be mailed to you. Like the first pattern, if you have opted for the printed pattern, is in the bag as well. And we have added a couple of more things that I will show in a minute as well. And one new thing is also that I'm going to teach online classes about the special techniques that are mentioned in the pattern. And of course, one more thing, our motto this year is Little Beauties. So I have this picture of a butterfly. This was not the inspiration for your yarn, but it was the inspiration for another yarn. And we have all these little things to get joy from, that are the inspirations for the yarns for this year, which we thought was quite fitting. Okay, so let's have a look inside. So this is the yarn, and it's called Blue Peacock. And when I'm editing this video, I'm going to put in the picture that I sent you as an inspiration. And it's got this fascinating bright blue, like the peacock feathers. And it's got a little bit of the green of the background where the peacock was sitting. He was sitting on a fence. And a little bit of the brown and a tiny bit of the orange, because like an orange brown was at the chest of the peacock. And you made this very harmonious, very fascinating, beautiful skein out of it. And it's on your yarn base, Katadin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that correctly.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's a blue-faced Leicester yarn with a little bit of lustre. And yeah, I really loved to knit with it. It has 400 meters on 100 grams, and it's like in between a sock yarn and a lace weight, I would say. So please let us know about the colorway. What was why you picked these colors and why they go so well together, and maybe let us know also about the yarn base and what you like about it.
Yeah. So honestly, the picture had it all. There is also a little gray in there for the wet, damp fence post. That and the brown are sort of your resting spots, to go back to what we were talking about before. The green is the green of the grass in the background, and the peacock was a beautiful, beautiful purpley blue and amazing in the color. I just, those are the colors that I saw and that I pulled out. There is a sort of an orangey brown in there as well, which is part of that. The Blue Face Leicester is incredible yarn because it is a long staple yarn, so it doesn't have a lot of ends, and it is strong, and it does have luster. It does have a little bit of shine to it. It is definitely one of my very favorite yarns, in part because it takes color so brilliantly. And it does knit up nicely. I love it for shawls. I love it. I do know people who knit it into socks. I am not one to knit on aughts. So I typically, it's not a yarn I would use for that, but I have people who do, and it wears incredibly well. So,
because the fibers are long.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've been, so Katahdin, just so you know, is a mountain in New England and of the US. And so it's just, the full-size skeins of Katahdin are 1,750 yards. So, it's based on big, but yes, it really, and I've been, we've had this yarn for quite a while.
Yeah. I was going to show a couple of more example skeins. This was the one that I pulled out of my bag. But I've seen that there is, like always with your yarns, every skein is an individual. And
Right.
there are some that are a little bit lighter and some that are a little bit darker. But every single one is really fascinating and beautiful. And every single one will have these elements of the bright peacock blue and the background colors and everything dyed to perfection and to perfect harmony. And I am really looking forward to see all these individual skeins being knit up into designs. Also, we have made sure that we will have more skeins of this yarn in Strickmich shop for everyone who's in Germany or in Europe. They can order it from us, or if anyone would like to make the shawl out of a different color, or if you have chosen the no yarn option and you would like to get some of the yarn, of course not in this color. This colorway is exclusive for 1 year, but there will be lots of other beautiful colors at your online store at missbabs.com if you're in the US or in Canada. So yeah, I was really happy to design with this yarn. It was so much fun. And I'm going to show you, first I'm going to show you what else is in the bag. Even if you are in the US, you have still gotten a bag with the number 1, but it doesn't contain any yarn. If you have chosen to get the printed pattern will be in there as well, but even more important than that, there are the little Strickmich Club beads that you can add to your project. They are our little membership badge because they come in the 4 colors of the Strickmich logo. And we have added 4 little stitch markers. You will only need 1 of them for this project, but these are the stitch markers. Please keep them for the projects that are coming, because that you might have some use for them in the next projects. So if you have ordered the the printed pattern, it looks like this, and there is also some more information about Miss Babs, and in the inside there's the pattern. And let me show you the design. This is what I made. And it's a match and move shape that you have seen from me a couple of times, but there are these interestingly shaped, I don't want to say holes, but there are, it works with negative space. And all these little cutouts here, they have moved to the tail of the shawl. So so this is the shawl. It was very much fun to knit this, and the blue peacock colors, they show up so nicely in here. And I thought it was so much fun to knit with, and I think it's when you look at it when it's knit up, it's really harmonizing, and it's not that really. It's not a colorway that goes like woo, you know, but it's a colorway. When you look at it, you'd start to appreciate like the bright spots and the harmony of the whole thing. So I really like this, and I think I hope that many of our club knitters will like it as well. The colorway is called Blue Peacock, and the design is called Blauer Pfau, which is just German for blue peacock. And it reminds me of the day when I went to this little zoo where I took the picture of the blue peacock. It's actually a small zoo close to here where they keep endangered farm animals. They also have lots of sheep, like rare breed sheep. And it was a nice day, and it was one of those little moments of beauty that I think we all should appreciate in these times. Yeah, so that's it. What do you think of my design, Babs?
I love the tail. I love the inside, but I'm intrigued by the tail. I think that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter really liked it too. So I might not be getting a lot of wear out of it because she's probably going to snag it away from me. So yeah.
They have a way of doing that, don't they?
So there are a couple of special techniques in this pattern, but they are all linked in the pattern. And if you have any questions about the pattern, then you can send us an email to mail@strickmich.de. And if you have booked the online class, then you don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to walk everyone who booked the online classes through the setup and through everything that is there to know. Yeah, so anything else you would like to say to our club members?
Not particularly. I hope you enjoy the yarn. And if you have any questions or if you have any problems, let me know. Let us know. And because we're certainly willing to work with you on anything. Because we love for our customers, for people who use our yarn to be successful.
My guess is that everyone will just fall in love with this yarn base and will storm your online shop and want to work with the big skeins and make a Novum shawl out of it and not stop knitting for miles and miles, because it is unusual. Like the blue-faced Leicester, I know that many people prefer merino all the time, but I think blue-faced Leicester is really one of those fibers that is totally overlooked because it is as soft as merino, but it feels a little more luxurious, I think. And it looks a little bit more luxurious because of the long fibers. And yeah, it's such a nice yarn.
And it wears so incredibly well. It really does. So.
Okay. So that was our first cast-on event for Strickmich Club 2021. We will see each other again on May 29th. And until then, happy knitting. And thank you so much, Ms. Babs, for being here.
Thank you, Martina. It was so good to see you.